what's going on, Los Angeles, Bruin Nation? How are we doing? It's been a minute since we've last connected. Obviously, enjoying the beauties and the wonders of the off season, but excited to get the band back together. And the man to my right needs absolutely zero introduction. Mr. Wayne Cook, the Silver Fox, the ambassador of UCLA football in so many ways in the house. Such a pleasure as always, Wayne. Feels like it was yesterday since we spoke, and you sort of look up and you're like, man, it's been 7 or 8 weeks and time to get the band back together. But first and foremost, Wayne, how are you doing? And welcome. You need no welcome, but so great to see you and have you here.
Jamal, it's good to see you, buddy. If anybody's watching this live, if you see that red in my eye, I'm not a big fan of the color, but something burst in my eye. So don't freak out. I'm not like a monster coming out at you, but it's been my poor students in the classroom have been freaking out the last couple of days. I don't know how it happened. It's weird how life happens, but to answer your question, man, I'm doing great. I do go through withdrawals like a lot of us do. I've been keeping up with the basketball program. Congrats to Coach Close and the women's basketball team. You know, to only have 2 losses to USC, who cares now? We beat them in the championship game. The one that matters the most, get a Big Ten championship ring. It's just I keep up with everything UCLA as much as I can, but let's be honest, spring ball can't get here fast enough because we've got. I mean, what are we going to get this year, Jamal? I mean, there's so many changes. It's going to feel like a brand new team.
No question about it, Wayne. And so excited about talking about the gridiron. But thank you so much for bringing up what a historic weekend, Wayne, for UCLA sports. I mean, think about it. First time in history, both the men and the women play USC back-to-back nights. And
well, the boys' game wasn't even worthy of talking about. It was such a butt kicking. Yeah,
absolutely, Wayne. I mean, the only drama there was, were the men going to break the record for largest margin of victory against SC? I think the record was 37 points back in '66, and it was 36 with just about 2.5 minutes to go, and then it was ultimate garbage time there. But what a performance there by the men! And then Wayne, you said it, the ladies coming back. They had that players-only meeting after the SC game last week, came back, just sort of ran through the tournament, gut check too, down 13 in that third quarter, kind of facing the same scenario a week earlier, and they overcome and they rise. And looks like they're not only going to be a number 1 seed in the region, but they're going to be the number 1 overall seed in this tournament. And Wayne, wouldn't it be so sweet if part 4 was for the Natty? I mean, and that would really be something.
I won't mention names because I don't want to give anybody any credit from USC. I'm kidding a little bit, but they have a very, very good player, and if you can stop her, as we did in the second half with tough defense, and you hope we've seen it about and remember when who was it? De'Aaron Fox went off on UCLA. I mean, like, you have seasons where the other player that's a great player gets hot. And in basketball, especially now that we're in the season of, one and done, right? You can't lose. You lose and you go home. But basketball is a blast. I enjoy the one thing I worry about with the men's team, and I'm sure we all kind of feel this way, is when it gets down to down the stretch. It just feels like sometimes they struggle to find an offensive rhythm. Who's going to take the shot? And so it can look good, so good the whole game, and then sometimes it looks like it dries up at the end. And I hope, as a lot of people have said online, that coach and the staff, part of the way I think they build this is for what's coming up. So you hope you feel like the best is yet to come, because the talent's there. Right, you just got to have your legs under you, and you've got to be able to execute the offense at the end. But it's been fun. It's been fun. But hey, and because I'm a golfer, it wasn't that long ago when Jake Knapp paired up in a team competition, and I'm going to forget her name right now. I'm so sorry. With male and female UCLA Bruins, and they won which was awesome. We just continue to be excellent in so many sports. We're watching gymnastics do so well. Just so many different things are happening, and it's awesome.
No, it is awesome, Wayne, and the Bruins spirit is alive and well with us and overflowing.
Softball's off to a great start too. I'm sorry, hey,
yes.
Coach Kelly. Coach Kelly has told me, she's looked at me and she goes, Cookie, you're the voice of the Bruins. And I said, slow down. I don't know if I want that responsibility, but I promise you, I love, and I always have loved UCLA softball. The staff is incredible. The players are always incredible. It's just something about, like, in a world where we talk so much about athletes getting all kinds of money, and maybe some people think they're spoiled and prima donnas and all that stuff. If you really look close enough, there are some really amazing athletes that are still just like they've always been. They grind every single day. They may have a little extra money in their pocket, some more in some sports than others, but they're still dedicated to the school and working their butts off. And it's fun to watch. And so we got a lot to look forward to.
Totally, Wayne. Totally. No, and I'm so happy you mentioned softball. I mean, it's an institution at UCLA. And, Wayne, one thing that made me so proud over this weekend, obviously basketball, both sides got kind of the headline. How about that gymnastics meet where there were 13,000 people at Pauley? Pauley was sold out for that gymnastics meet. And it just kind of shows just how deep this Bruin nation, this Bruin family, and this Bruin brand goes and touches so many different lives. So couldn't be more proud to be a Bruin.
It doesn't hurt to have an Olympic gold medalist on your squad. It doesn't hurt. She's really fun to watch.
He really is. He really is. Well, Wayne, we can talk about all things UCLA into all hours of the night, frankly, and that's what I love so much about our conversations. But let's shift to the gridiron. That's where sort of I think we want to sort of focus things and where we're here to sort of discuss in greater detail. So much to sort of look at from this perspective, Wayne. We're on the cusp here, just a couple of weeks now from spring ball, and we're going to see a lot kind of reveal itself there. But I think there's kind of a looking forward and then sort of a looking back and reflecting. And before we talk about the season that is to come, I would love to get your impressions of the NFL Combine and our sort of trilogy of front seven players that we have talked about at length for months now. And it seems like the rest of the NFL world is catching up and understanding just how great Caden Madrano, Femi, and Schlesinger really are. Those guys have excelled in so many different ways, whether it's been 40, whether it's been kind of the squat jumps, whether it's been, different weight exercises, whether it's been kind of in the interview room with the general managers. But it really feels like all three of those guys' stocks are absolutely soaring. And we're talking about sort of early round picks and early picks overall, not just at their position, but from the totality of the draft perspective. Just your impressions, Wayne, of these three and just Bruin representation at the Combine.
So let's start with something that we'll go back a couple of years. UCLA has had an elite level defense. And I think this is one of the reasons why UCLA fans get frustrated. I still go back to the Dorian Thompson-Robinson senior year where I feel like we should have won the conference. I thought we were good enough. And remember, there's always things in play. When you have a senior quarterback, there's always things in play. I will say this till the day I die. Not all quarterbacks are going to win championships because they're just not. Like it takes, if you go back and watch what Cade did when he won 20 games in a row, there was some heroics, and you have to win the right games to win championships, and that's tricky, and it's hard, and it's not just the quarterback, but you have to have that guy. You have to have the ball bounce your way. You have to have. There's so many little factors that play into winning. But to act like UCLA didn't have a ridiculous amount of talent on the defensive side of the ball, and you and I talked about this, Jamal, last year. I said it, and people were like, we're going to lose a lot. I said, well, we lost our coach, right? And I said, Kaika Malloy is legit. Like you trace his history to where he is fine. And he took that energy and his just way of being, and just absolutely just shows so much love in both the good ways, right? He's compassionate, but he's also tough as nails. He expects a lot out of people. And people don't realize a lot of times that love has to be that way. You have to tell people the truth. You just can't coddle them, especially in today's era. And I watched them in spring, and I said, man, this defense is going to be fine. It's going to be not only fine, it's going to be good because of Jay Tawia, because of Medrano, because of Femi. And we could go down the list. It's not just those guys. There was a ton of good players on that team. And then you throw into the mix, and I said this in spring last year, Carson Schlesinger should play. I watched him in practice, and I'm like, dude, I go, do you guys not see this guy? He's possibly the best athlete, one of the best athletes on the field every time I show up. And then he got hurt, and he was hobbled a little bit, and you're like, oh, my gosh, come on, Carson. And then look what he does. And so to look at this group and to watch how good they were on defense, and then to look at the other side of the ball and look at how much they struggled. And I'm not here to throw anybody under the bus, but the Bieniemy experiment didn't work. The offensive line, I thought we'd be fine at receiver, and I still think that. I thought we were real good at tight end, and we were good at tight end. I was a little worried about running back. And remember, running back and offensive line are connected.
Yeah.
And then when you throw in the complicated system, which we were all bragging about in the spring and how many words it was, and it's NFL, and it's like, and then we all realize, oh, well, maybe it should be in the NFL. And again, I'm not trying to be mean. That wasn't enough time probably, but it was tough. So all of that said, and again, Jamal, you learned this about me. I just went in 16 different directions.
I love
before
it.
Getting back to the question, but Kay Medrano was a player that people are sick of me talking about him, but I absolutely love the guy. And I loved him as a freshman, as a receiver. And I told everybody, I said, this guy's going to be good. And I'm telling you, to this day, coaches, stop looking at whatever you're looking at when you're judging people. Just look at if they can play. It's the most important thing. What do they jump? What do they run? How do they look? Stop it. Can they play? It's 2025. We have people all over the place surprising us. You'd stop labeling people and put them into categories. Kay Medrano, in my opinion, as a receiver, could have been a Danny Farmer type.
Yeah.
Tall, athletic, great timing. If you watch him play linebacker, he has athletic timing. He ran a 4.46, which in receiver time may not be the fastest in the world, but when you're 6'3" and built like that guy is, you can't tell me he couldn't have been Sean LaChapelle. You can't tell me. And yet sometimes coaches can't see past it. Well, yeah, but I'm looking for this type of guy. Whatever. Kane went and made the best of his situation on the other side of the ball, and I still think, I'm telling you, if you put him at strong safety with the right coaching and the right system, I think he could play there. He's got instincts. He's got great. Did you watch him run his drills?
Oh, yeah.
He is so fluid and so athletic. It's just ridiculous. And I'm going to give you, before I move on, I'm going to give you a little comparison, and you'll like this one, Jamal. Donnie Edwards.
Yes.
Donnie Edwards was an undersized linebacker who, by the way, was smaller than Kane. Donnie, I don't know how he did it. Smaller than Kane. Like shorter, smaller. Like if you see him now, I swear he's $180. Okay, if that. And Donnie did it for over a decade at a very high level. Like he was like this close to being a perennial All-Pro, and some years irritated me beyond belief that he didn't, because his stats, he should have been there. But Kane is that kind of athlete. He's that kind of athlete. Femi is another great guy who I love. I'm so proud of what he has. You saw him at all the highlights they've shown from the Senior Bowl, I believe it was, and just him just destroying people. And we watched him switch positions, which is, again, something we had talked about last spring. Okay, don't be surprised if we see Femi, on the edge, because it felt like we needed it. And he turned it into, as the year progressed, and this is a coaching thing too, as the year progressed, about mid-season, he was a legitimate defensive end. He was just flat out. It took him a little while to figure it all out, and then he's playing against some of the best tackles in the country in these all-star practices and stuff like that, and he's destroying people. So happy for Femi. And then we watched. I know that Carson didn't do everything, but what he did do, he excelled at, and he's one of the ones that he had such a good year that he can kind of take a step back a little bit and say, watch the tape. Just watch the tape. And guess what's going to happen when they watch his tape? They're going to see Femi. And when they watch Femi's tape, they're going to see Kane. You know what I mean? And then they're going to go, wait a second. That big number 93 up in front is occupying two guys a lot and making it easy for these guys. So, man, tons of fun. I'm rooting for all those guys. But now we got to start thinking as Bruins, we're going to root for them. We're going to hope for the best because we all love to watch them in the NFL. But we got to figure out what's next for next year because we want to see a good UCLA football team.
No question, Wayne. No, you broke that down so beautifully, and what a segue it is to sort of think about now, spring and moving forward. But Wayne, I can't help but reminisce a bit. Obviously Jay being the anchor of that defense, I think he's going to make a team very, very excited. Yeah. To sort of have him. And then you sort of go back to these moments. And when you mentioned it, that Femi game against Penn State, right? That was that coming out party. Yep. And when you look at where Penn State ended up in terms of the college football playoff and being in that, Final Four and being in that, position to potentially win a national championship and seeing how Femi almost single-handedly neutralized that offense for the better part of a half in that game. And that was the game. You remember, J-Mart was the quarterback, first career start. We were very conservative offensively. But the fact that team was able to stay with the Final Four quality team really sort of spoke to Femi's abilities there. And then Kane, what a season he had. And it was that Nebraska game, Wayne, I felt like it just sort of opened up just the whole repertoire of his capability. That pick six was a thing of beauty there. And then obviously Carson just wire to wire
all year.
Was all year. It was just a tackling machine. So these four Bruins, I think we're going to be very proud to see where the results go here at the next level. And I'm sure we're going to be rooting for them every step of the way.
And one more thing to remember, let's go back a few years. And we had a player at UCLA named Quentin Lake who remember when he missed some games and he was out and we're like, what's wrong with the defense? Quentin's gone on. I don't remember where he was drafted. It was fifth or later. I don't remember.
Yep.
He's a captain, one of the best players on that team. UCLA has produced. I'm just giving you an example, another recent player that's gone on to do really, really good things. We talked about Odighizuwa getting a big contract.
Yes.
So many players. There's just so many players. That was a little while before that, but Quentin, I'm really happy for him because of he's a more recent Bruin that's gone on and he's a team captain on elite defense. The Rams defense was awesome this year. So, good for those guys and good for the UCLA coaching staffs. For all the players out there, if you're not listening to this show, by the way, you need to because we're going to give you good football content all year. But good defensive players come out of UCLA. We've put a ton of guys into the NFL, and not just guys that are just on rosters, but guys that play and are difference makers. No,
so well said there, Wayne. And it's a perfect sort of segue into 2025 and who's going to be the next Quentin Lake and who's going to be the next Jay Toia and who's going to be the next Kane Medrano and so on and so forth. And I think, Wayne, this is where, from a fan perspective, sometimes Bruin Nation is a little perplexed when you sort of see the number of NFL guys from UCLA. UCLA is top 6 in terms of all programs in college football of sending guys to the NFL, guys that have won Super Bowls, guys that have been perennially in the playoffs, big contributions, first-round picks, on and on the list goes. And so then the question is, how do we sort of put it all together and really kind of reclaim our place in college football's truly ultra elite moving forward? And I think that's a great way to sort of start the conversation here, Wayne, moving forward. I think we feel like we've got, with Deshaun Foster, with Tino Sunseri, with Ikaika Malloy, and with this staff, I think a philosophy and alignment here moving forward. But now as we're on the cusp of seeing what we have in 2025, big exits, as we talked about, but we also did really well in terms of, the transfer portal recruiting. We were top 10, top 7, top 6 in some categories. And now, developing these young guys. So kind of going into the spring here, Wayne, what are obviously a lot of question marks? Who's going to be the quarterback? Is there going to be a significant upgraded offensive line? How do we replace this quartet in the front seven? Does the secondary finally make that next push? What are we going to sort of get in terms of, a Hudson Habermel coming off of injury? Is a wide receiver going to truly step up and be wide receiver one? So many questions all over the field. I think we feel like we got a lot of talent. What are the first 2 or 3 things you're looking for in terms of spring practice, and what are your first 2 or 3 big questions?
So I can't, first of all, I can't wait, because this year, probably more than any year I can remember, I had ideas last year. I kind of knew enough of the players. I know people get mad when I do this. I still thought we had a good enough quarterback. I think that, when you throw in offensive line play, the offense, and all the things that happened last year, I don't think it's a fair evaluation. You can get mad at me if you want to and throw something right now. I don't really care. But, the idea is that the reason why I bring that up is I believe that, if you go back and study the history of UCLA football, and you're going to have to go all the way back to 98, for the most part, and I know that was not Homer Smith, that was Bob Toledo and his team and his staff. But if you go back to all the Terry Donahue, even all the way back into the 70s and 80s and early 90s, when Homer Smith was the offensive coordinator, UCLA won Pac-10 championships. It was pretty incredible if you think about it. You go back to guys like John Shara. Okay, you go David Norrie and Matt Stevens and all of these guys. I mean, Homer Smith coached Jay Schrader. I don't know if Tom Ramsey, Rick Neuheisel. There were, and again, all the way up through me, I was the last Homer quarterback that played in it for and won a Pac-10 championship. Having an offensive coordinator, we've talked about Ikaika Malloy. I think we have the defensive coordinator. I think it's a whole new staff. I mean, we only have 4. Scott White's coming back. I think Neuheisel's coming back. Right. Obviously, Coach Foster, and there's and Malloy.
Yep.
I mean, other than that, it's a new staff. But I like that. And then you bring in Tino Sunseri from an Indiana team that went from the worst football program in the history of mankind. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating, right? Look at the history of Indiana football. And I know he was co-offensive coordinator, but he was on a staff that brought in a quarterback from a lower level school in Rourke and turned him into a Heisman top 10. Okay. And he was a quarterback coach, right? Tournament, so they ran an offense that I know had a couple moments late in the year against the better defenses where they weren't as good. But for the most part, I mean, come on, Bruin fans. We scored 16 points. Well, am I wrong? Was it 16? I don't forget what the numbers were.
Yeah,
we were abysmal. It was abysmal. So that to me is what I want to see. I want to see, and it's hard because remember last spring, everybody was excited about the offense because, and this is what's so hard about watching offense in practice now, they don't hit anybody.
Right.
So quarterbacks are safe. So you don't really get the full idea of I don't know if the offensive line's doing a good job. It looks like they're doing okay. They don't take the running backs down, so sometimes we're watching and we're going, did he get – no, he wouldn't have gotten there because he would have been tripped up or whatever. So there's a lot of tricky stuff, but you can watch the receivers, you can watch the route running, you can watch the defensive backs, and just their grasp of the offense. But it is hard. So a lot of times you go into – even if you feel like you have a trained eye, you go into the first game going, God, I hope we're as good as we think we are. And then you see some of the struggles at the O-line and getting into plays on time and and you're going, oh no, this is not good, and we saw that pretty much all year. It never really got to we had moments, right? We had the Nebraska moment where we had a quarterback that kind of went off in that game. We had moments, but there just weren't enough. There wasn't enough consistency. So the Tino Sinceri, remember we have a new running back coach, we have a new receiver coach. Like all of this is going to have to mesh. So here's what I want to say. I kind of like, sucks, when we didn't even talk about the offensive side of the ball. Holy cow, don't let me forget his name right now. Tight end last year. Holy cow.
Monteval.
Holy cow. Maliki, I'm sorry.
Wayne's just, I mean, all this means, Wayne, is that you're really enjoying the offseason, you know?
Yeah, I know. But he's a guy that I expect to be in the NFL for a long time. He's big, he can block, he can run, he can catch. But we still have Hudson Habermill coming back, who should be fully healthy, who's one of the nicest guys in the world and one of the hardest workers in the world, and he loves football. So when you put that all together, you know he's going to be ready to go. Peterson showed a lot last year.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm feeling good there. We don't know enough about Flores. Like, I've heard some things, and I'm like, oh, no, the injury was – because, remember, it just seemed like it never got better.
Yeah.
And I've heard a few things that I'm like, and this isn't official, but I'm hoping, because another really talented guy that was showing a lot early in the year. But, man, we brought in some guys, right? We bring in the guy from Cal. We bring in the guy from App State. Who are good-looking, really good-looking athletes, and I'm not looking at the roster right now, so you'll have to bear with me on the names. But, like, the idea is that we've got a couple receivers we brought in. We still have Quasi, who I think a lot of us expect to take that next jump from kind of the raw, young, energetic, not really sure what he's going to do, not really sure if he ran the route right, not really sure if he's going to get too excited and get a penalty, like not really sure. Trust me, for a receiver, though, you like that. I want guys like that. I want guys that want to show off at receiver. I really do, because typically those guys are the guys that you're trying to like, hey, dude, you know, I'm going to try to calm you down, but keep acting like you want to destroy the world, because that's who I want to throw the ball to. Carter Shaw was showing a lot before he got hurt. And I don't know if people quite grasp the concept of his body type. He's that long, fast, he can run. And he's got good skills too. So, like, I feel like we're deep everywhere. And you mentioned before we started the offensive line, there's a lot of new names. They went out and really hit the transfer portal hard. So I'm going to put a question mark. Okay, Coach Quan is a huge hire. Okay, again, we're very hopeful. So a lot of these transfers, you're like, I like it. There's good upside. But again, we don't know. We had a couple of linemen that came in last year, and again, I love them. They're great guys, but they didn't quite do as well as we wanted them to do. So they've got to come in and be coached up and be good. And then if you throw in the offense, which I think helps offensive linemen a little bit, if you think about what Indiana does, the ball gets out. And if you do that, you don't have to be quite as good at protecting as long as I think they had to last year. So that's what I'm looking for. I want to see how that develops. And then, I reached out to UCLA for an updated roster, and the crickets, they didn't get back to me. And they will. UCLA, I'm not picking on you, but like I want to know. Jalen Berger, I think, has a chance. We brought in, and I know I'm not looking at it right now, we brought in the other running back, the transfer. I know you know who I'm talking about, who looks really good on film. Yeah. Who I'm like excited about. I feel like he's quick and he can hit the hole, and so I feel like that's a little bit of a question mark too, because the offensive line and I'm not sure, but I feel good about tight end, maybe a little bit more depth. I feel good about receiver. Quarterback, Joey Aguilar hasn't won the job yet, by the way. I always say, don't ever just anoint somebody. That's the worst thing you can do as a coach. Okay? He may have, and I don't even like the idea of promising guys anything. If you come in and maybe, last year wasn't as good as the year before that for him at App State, but this guy can spin it. He can run an offense. He can be a leader. So we're going to see, but I am hopeful. I hope the freshman comes in, the 4-star freshman comes in and competes. I hope Luke Duncan competes. I hope these guys come in and show up and say, listen, coach, I know you brought in this guy to be our starter, but I'm going to prove you wrong, because those are the kinds of guys that you want. And then on the defensive side of the ball, and I know I'm stealing all this time here, secondary, I don't know. I like the guys. We're bringing in all new people. Okay, I feel like we do have a couple of Pellot and Woods.
Yep.
We have a couple of really talented linebackers coming back. I like Keanu, if he's healthy, coming back, who's another great guy. Gary Smith hasn't been healthy forever, so let's hope that he comes back and adds some depth. But, man, we brought in a ton of transfers all over the defense. We got a really good edge, I hope. And, again, I'm not looking at the roster, so I forget.
Yeah, no, DeVilliers from Arkansas.
Yeah.
Wayne,
we got the linebacker from Oregon State, Chisholm, I believe.
Yes.
So, but all of these guys need to be Muasau, need to be Latu, need to be like any of the transfers that we've brought in over the years that we've been very successful with. Think about UCLA. They've had a lot of successful players that have come from other schools that have come in and bought into what UCLA does. I mean, our secondary by the end of the year last year, I thought was fantastic.
Yes.
And then we had a lot of players that came from, Notre Dame and Oregon, and we had players from all over the place, right? And so it was fantastic. So those guys are going to have to step up and prove they could be the next wave of transfers that could be really good players.
No, so I mean, really, so comprehensive there, Wayne, and it makes a ton of sense. I think you're spot on in terms of receiver. You talked about. I mean, people forget Flores, Wayne, was the number one receiver on this team after the Hawaii game. I mean, the 3 catches for 102 yards and the touchdown, and he had that long touchdown. I mean, it looked like in spring, he was burning everybody. It looked like Flores was going to sort of completely separate. So if he's any version of that this year, I mean, you've got a bona fide stud on one side. We're expecting Gilmer to make that jump on the other side. We haven't even talked about TMA. And then,
please, gosh. See that? I always feel like whenever we're doing these things live, Titus and Moke Atamalala, and to your dad too, because I know you listen to the show. Dude, I am like really excited about you. I'm not worried about that position. I'm not worried about you at all. Titus is a guy that I put check. He busts his butt. He's ultra competitive. He's a team leader. Check. Sorry, Titus. I did not forget. I rely on my own brain too much, and it's getting too old. But you're the man. So anyway, Jamal, I'm sorry.
No. I mean, spot on. When we love, we love Titus.
Wow.
He's our guy. There's no question about it. And then Wayne, when you look at running back, I think you said it really best. Look, Berger, in a lot of ways, Wayne, is built like a Big Ten running back. That downhill. He showed the flashes there. I think with the right touches, and he's one of those backs you could tell the more that he got the ball, the better he got. Some running backs are really good in these spots where you give them the ball 4 to 6 times and they'll be able to sort of make a play. And that's sort of part of their game. They're scat backs. They'll find open space. They'll try and create some matchups. Berger's one of those guys who's built to last. It sounds like a GNC, type of truck commercial. Like he's built, for sort of long term, like give me the 18 carries, give me the 20 carries, give me the 22 carries, and I'll take you where you need to go. And the combination of that with the young kids, I think we're going to be fine at running back. I think you mentioned it with secondary. We're deep. I think we found some slots there. From a linebacker position, I'd love to have seen us get maybe one more linebacker, but I think the roster is where it is right now.
Still could, by the way. Still could. There's another window. Yeah.
Totally. And so to me, Wayne, it comes down to a quarterback, offensive line, defensive line. I think those are going to be the 3 variables that really can swing this season any number of ways. Because Wayne, if you recall, and I'll pass it over to you right away, when we were hot last year, when we sort of caught fire, got the 3 straight wins after sort of that brutal 4-game stretch, we were 1-5. Everybody looked up around the country and said, UCLA's 5th best team in the Big Ten. And the top 4 teams in the Big Ten all went to the playoff. And sort of when you look at the landscape of the Big Ten, historically it's very top heavy. I don't think, Indiana is necessarily going to repeat the success that they had last year. Ohio State's Ohio State. Oregon is Oregon. Michigan's kind of a question mark. Obviously, they're a perennial blue blood, but they lose 2 top 10 picks from their defensive line. So they've got some reloading to do. And then Penn State, is one of those teams that kind of always wins the games they're supposed to, but, it still feels like you want a little bit more. So I think the Big Ten it's very clear, who's sort of at the top of the Big Ten. But when UCLA was humming last year, particularly with the four guys that we mentioned defensively, this was a top 5 team in the conference. So quarterback and the trench play can wildly swing where this season goes, in my mind.
So this is what stinks about last year is that, we catch fire. We're doing a good job. I thought the play calling got better. I totally agree with you, by the way, that there are teams that even Penn State, we proved that we could play with.
Right.
With a backup quarterback. And again, Justin Martin, good luck winning the job in Maryland. Another great guy that I'm rooting for. But again, it was a very limited offense. We did what we could do. It was a lot of quick hitting stuff and get the ball out. And it was just a game that we couldn't get anything going, but the defense did awesome. I mean, Penn State's a great running team, and we shut them down. And so it showed what we can do. So I agree with you. If you look at 4 teams making the playoffs, which is cool because it's one of those things that you could be 4.
Yeah.
You could be 3. Like you don't have to win the conference to go to the Rose Bowl like you used to. Like in my day, you had to win the conference. Now, you still want to win the conference, but you just need to. It's very doable. It's like for people out there that act like, well, it's been too long. I still go back to that team a few years ago. We could have been a playoff team. We had enough talent to be that year, and that wasn't that long ago. You could talk about you could go back a little bit more in time and talk about the Brett Hundley teams. You could talk about the 2 10-win teams. Those could have been teams that could have competed for a playoff spot. Like you could get to that point, and when that happens, you watch how much recruiting will change. More kids will want to stay home. So I agree with you. The question marks that I agree with, I think the offensive coordinator is going to have a huge impact on how the quarterback does. And also the fact that if you who's a receiver from Indiana last year, the one that transferred from App State, Surratt.
Surratt, yep.
He was really good, really, really good player in that system. He got a lot of opportunities. Players want to get a lot of opportunities, right? When they know they're going to get the ball and the ball's going to be spread around and it's going to get out, it's exciting. You mentioned Jalen Berger, and I want to add on this because I think the other kid's last name is Woods. I was just looking at it. Is it Nathan Woods?
Yeah.
Nathan Woods. I'm telling you, from when I watch film, the receivers, Mikey Matthews and Caden Robinson, both come in with opportunities to compete for starting jobs. So, I mean, there's talent, but you want to get these guys the ball. With our running game last year, and you mentioned Berger, I'm going to go ahead and totally agree. From what I see, from what I watch, and again, sometimes what we miss is, are they hitting the hole? Are they picking up the blocks? Are they running the offense correctly? And I wish I could go into the meetings more. I talk to coaches when I can, but for the most part, I'm guessing a little bit sometimes on that stuff, but as good as I can. But from his first step in running downhill, you mentioned Big Ten type running back, someone that if you could get the transfers mixed in with, Sam Yoon and DeGiorgio and some of the guys that may be coming back, and you can get some depth, and Coach Quan and Coach Sinceri, because don't forget, those 2 coaches meshing and working together along with Jerry Neuheisel and the tight ends is going to have a huge impact on the running game. And then how do the receivers block downfield? All of this stuff is what makes championship football. And so, to me, just watching him, I'm like, Berger can be a really good
Absolutely.
back. You go back and watch his film at Michigan State, and he had a terrible O-line there, just kind of like he did last year. And remember, TJ was getting a lot of the carries. So what's he going to be like when he gets 20 carries? Is a new coaching staff with new eyes going to look at Anthony Frias? I believe he's coming back, correct?
Yes.
And go, hey, he can play. He's got that squatty, quick kind of. He plays so hard. He's such a good teammate. So we don't know what's going to happen. But I can emphasize this a lot. I'm going to be watching coaches. I think Coach Deshaun Foster, who we haven't talked about at all on this show, it took a ton of courage for him to. and I happen to know, I'm pretty sure this was the wheels were turning right after the last game of the season. We need to make some changes. He took the job late in the cycle. He put together what he could. This is his group now. He went out, he brought back Coach Meat, who's a great recruiter. We've always seen what he can do. He's been here before. He knows the landscape. And he's got coaches in place that I believe that he believes in. And so, and not that he didn't believe in the other, I'm not throwing shade on anybody. The other coaches had done a great job, but this is Coach Foster's, this is what he wants. This is his dream. So he's going to put together a team of coaches and the players that he believes he can win with. And if they can have some success, I've always said that. Success, you got to win. You've got to find it, because we're still like, we're not the hardest schedule in the country, but I still think we're top 20.
Yep.
It's not like our schedule is going to get, like, it's easier. That 5-game stretch was stupid last year. It's easier, but it's still hard. But he's still going to have to go out and find a way to win. And we're going to have to get to a bowl game, and we're going to have to find a way. And there's a lot of faces that we're all going to be watching that we're hoping can come in and be those next wave of transfers, along with the players we already have, that kind of live up to the hype.
No, Wayne, there's so much to unpack there. You said it so well. There's three things that come to mind, particularly with everything that you said. The first is, I just want to sort of foot stomp this point that all you got to be is top 4 in the conference now, in this 12-team playoff. And look, in a year or two, it's going to go from 12 to 14 and most likely 16. I mean, this uniquely benefits UCLA football in a very significant way. And I think, Wayne, you said it best. I mean, 2022 was a playoff team, even with the 2 losses. We were sort of lamenting that last throw to Bobo, against Arizona that goes out of bounds, lamenting the interception in the SC game, and what could have been there. Even with those 2 situations going against us, that was going to be a playoff team in terms of top 12. When you look at, you mentioned it, the second and third Hundley years, I mean, there's a world there. Rosen got close in his freshman year too, and it sort of fell off right at the end there. But that was going to be a team that would have been right in the playoff mix up until the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season. That great Drew Olson team of 2005 would have been a playoff team. Yeah. I mean, so you're looking at a situation where now with this new structure over the last 20 years, you got 4 or 5 playoff teams in there. And so it changes the way, you can sort of approach things as well from a regular season standpoint. So I think there's renewed optimism. The margin for error was just so slim in the old college football, Wayne, where, everything had to go perfect. You had to be injury free. All the balls had to bounce your way. You could afford maybe 1 loss at the right time with the right team and the right circumstance. Right. But it was, every week was life and death. Now, you're in a position here, 2 losses, 3 losses, the right 3 losses gets you in. And, it's really significant there. And then the second thing, Wayne, I'll say is, I think quarterback's going to be really fascinating, because I think you said it best about Joey Aguilar. I wonder where Deshaun and Sanseri's mindset is going to be when they're making an assessment, because if you close your eyes, Wayne, and then you open them and you look at Luke Duncan, he looks like Rourke. I mean, he's built like Rourke. He's got the release of, he's got it all in terms of what you saw from Indiana last year. And when you see how well that worked, Luke Duncan to me is my dark horse in terms of winning this job outright. Now, Aguilar beat that James Madison team and beat Rourke in the FCS playoffs. And I think that's what has sort of stayed in Sanseri's mind about, I got to get this guy on my side now and let me see what I can do. But I think ultimately it's going to come down to Aguilar and Luke Duncan for just from my perspective on who's going to win this job. And I think it's a lot closer than people realize. And I think the last thing, Wayne, I'll say is, I think the offensive line is going to get there and be good enough to allow Sanseri to sort of open up the entirety of his playbook. I think the question to me is going to be defensively in that front seven. Do we feel like we have the depth? Do we feel like we have the quality in the Big Ten? Or is this going to be one of those years where the narrative flips, Wayne, and we're going to be scoring a lot of points And we're just going to have to be really opportunistic. I think about some of those teams in years past, Big Ten, SEC. I mean, even SC a couple of years ago, that Caleb Williams' first year, if you recall, they were, it was a very average.
Outscoring people.
They were just outscoring people, but they were very opportunistic. It was like 4 turnovers a game. I mean, they were sort of flying around. It was bend but don't break. Does this team look a little bit like that this year? In terms of makeup. So that's kind of where I'm thinking between this quarterback battle, the margin for error opening up, and perhaps stylistically this year, this may be a bend but don't break, but we can put some points on the board.
So just quickly, I'll go all the way back when you were talking about the different seasons. Even remember when Dante Moore was playing, we had a Utah game that was so winnable, and then an Oregon State game that was so winnable. And the pick sixes were just like, so deflating. Because remember, that year, that was a very, very good defense. And if we just stay out of our own way, because again, you guys look at the teams. I mean, we're in, we get to play. And again, this is not bulletin board material. We're not playing, this gauntlet where we get Northwestern, we get Maryland, we get, not that those aren't good teams, we get Michigan State, we get some of the teams that weren't near the top of the conference, where it felt like we played all of them except for Ohio State last year. Now we get them this year, but by the way. But even if you go there and even if you go there and you lose, you're not out of it. To your point,
no.
So that's great. I'm going to say this because I've gotten to know the quarterbacks, the ones that are still around a little bit, and Luke Duncan is a kid I've talked to quite a bit. For one, because he's just a really nice kid. And he does. He looks the part of the old school drop back, Drew Bledsoe, Peyton Manning. He's a big kid. So I'll say this. When you watch a Joey Aguilar, he's more that wily, not even close to the same size, doesn't have a rocket for an arm, but is going to play quarterback. And I've kind of got to the point where I wish I could convince the 6'4", 6'5" quarterbacks to watch the smaller quarterbacks and watch their feet, because their feet typically are so much better. They're the Drew Brees, they're just so active with their feet. Baker Mayfield, I loved his feet, still do. They just did things right. Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, for big 6'4", 6'5" quarterbacks, were slow. They were slow, and I say this because my 40 time for the pro days was faster than theirs, which means they're slow. Okay, they had amazing feet. The way they moved around in the pocket and bought time and showed pocket mobility was incredible. Luke needs to get the glaze off of his eyes. Sometimes I watch him in practice and I'll have an opportunity to throw a flat on his backside in red zone, and his feet won't get caught up. And he'll throw it all arm and all body, which a lot of big quarterbacks do, and he'll be inaccurate. And you can't, it's like, hit the layups. I love to quote Kurt Warner. He's very active on social media, and he talks about quarterbacks all the time, and I'm sure he probably bugs people, but he's so smart. He talks about you don't have to throw the ball hard every time. He goes, I don't understand why we're so enamored with big arms, because most of the really, really big arm quarterbacks aren't any good. You have to have good feet. You have to be able, he says, hit the layups. If you can't hit the layups, you cannot play quarterback. So if you're Luke Duncan, you got to hit the layups. Show up in practice with this new system, and if you're throwing those quick bubble screens, quick outs, any of the routes that we saw Indiana run against us, right? Some of those end zone routes that were brilliant, which, by the way, I would watch them and go, why don't we do that? We will this year, because I remember the Indiana game. They hit a flat receiver for a touchdown, and I'm like, oh God, the other guy was wide open too. It might have been they hit the guy over the middle, and I'm like, the flat guy was wide open, and I said they're going to come back to that play later, and sure enough, they did, and they threw it to the other guy, and it was both of them were touchdowns. You've got to hit the layups if you're not consistent with your feet. So I'm going to say to Luke, you need to spend the entire offseason in everything you're doing. Your feet have to be the best feet on the team. One of the biggest compliments I ever got from my coach when I played, the great Homer Smith, who I mentioned earlier, is he was in love with my feet and my ability to prestidigitate, as he called it. I was a great ball faker. Okay, I may not have been the fastest guy in the world, but I did the best I could with, and I really worked hard at it, and it matters. It makes a difference. So I think Luke's got to take that jump. And when I said get the glaze off of your eyes, you're not a kid in the program anymore. You've got to be the leader of the huddle. If you want to compete for a job and start at this level, every single person on that team has to believe in you. And if they don't, you've got no chance. You've got to win the locker room. And I think people don't talk about that enough. I know I dealt with it when I played, like whether it was coming off an injury after I only played half of one game my first year. I had to re-win that locker room and prove to those guys that I was the starter the next year. So it's more than just proving it to the coaches. You got to prove it to the guys on the field too.
No, makes sense, Wayne. And it's so interesting that you mentioned, and we'll leave with this, and I'll sort of close and ask you your thoughts on this. Aguilar, you said it so well in terms of, he's a gamer. He's sort of a playmaker. He has elements of the Vanderbilt quarterback last year, and he's got sort of
Diego Pavia,
and he's got elements. He's a little Manzellian to him, and so I think it's going to be really fascinating to see how Sunseri's system that seems very much timing based and very much, again, going through your progressions and finding the layups and making the consistent play. How does that balance with sort of Aguilar's instincts and creativity and playmaking? I think there's going to be really some fascination there moving forward. And Wayne, I'll leave you with this. What do you need to see from the defensive side? I think we're very enamored with what's going on offensively. What are the things that you are looking for defensively over the next couple of weeks as we get into spring and over the course of that 4-week period where you say, hey, this is legitimately now a team that can really threaten at the top of the Big Ten and have the dreams that we've been talking about earlier?
So I almost, in my brain, said to play Big Ten football, I hate it because if you remember, the great Pac-12 schools were good up front too.
Yeah.
The really good Washington teams would kick your butt on the inside. The Oregon teams have always had big guys. SC in their prime had guys on the defensive line, and in UCLA with their defense had Latus and Jay Tawias, and guys like that. So we've always had those types of players. So I'm not even going to say that. I'm not going to say anything about the Big Ten style of football. You do need to be a good football team, though. You have to be good in the trenches. So you're going to hope that Keanu and Gary come back healthy and can play, and you got to hope that the other players that have been brought in, defensive ends, because again, Femi, we were already weak there last year. And is Apiu coming back?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he got better last year.
Yeah.
That helps a lot, you guys. Like, remember, he was a transfer from Notre Dame. And I kind of like, and I hate that I do this, but like, it's almost like if I'm going to talk about you a lot, and I by the way, I'm not acting like it matters if I talk about you a lot, but you got to make some plays. Like, my joke has always been to the players, if you're good, I interview you after the game. Like, you want to turn around and see this gray-haired guy chasing you with a microphone at the end of a game because I think you played great. And I interviewed Femi. I interviewed Kane. I interviewed Carson. I interviewed Flores before he was hurt. I interviewed the guys that are making plays. You're darn right. I got Garbers after the Nebraska game. Like, I'm going to find you if you ball out. Okay, Ramon Henderson when he makes interceptions, I'm going to find you. So it's fun. It's fun, but you've got to be able to make plays. And gosh, you can tell I'm in midseason form. I just lost my train of thought. I forgot what I was talking about that last part. What?
No, it was just about what you want to see from the defense in spring ball to feel like, okay, they're coming along. And together with the offense, we can really make a run here.
I don't know if it's the shots to the head back when I played or if it's the age thing. I'm not really sure, but no, it's got to start up front. It just has to. You have to be able to if they're going to beat your defensive tackles, and if your defensive ends, and I think is Busick coming back too. I think Busick is coming back. These guys got to take the next step, but those guys in the middle, we were spoiled with Jay.
Yeah.
We really were. We were spoiled, and you're gonna have to replace a guy that offensive coordinators had to deal with. You don't shut down Penn State's running game without really good play up front, and so that front's going to matter. And then again, huge question mark on the defensive backs. I didn't really see, go back 2 years ago when we were in the Pac-12, some of the best passing offenses I had seen in the history of my time covering UCLA football. It was that good. That was the Penix and Caleb. I mean, we had Bo Nix. I mean, it was stupid how good the Pac-12 was. Even after Bo Nix, then we transfer into the lefty, Gabriel. I mean, so many good quarterbacks. You just every week you're like, my gosh. I didn't really see that in the Big Ten last year. I mean, we act like Drew Aller is like the greatest thing ever, and I'm like, because he had 5 stars next to his name.
Right.
I'm like, he's compared to what I saw in the Pac-12, he's okay. I mean, I'm sorry for saying that. I'm not a hater, but I'm like, I don't think he's like the best thrower I've ever seen by any stretch of the imagination. So I look at some of what I've seen, and I'm like, UCLA, if they can score points and then find a way to play defense. I don't know. I mean, you're obviously going to be – Ohio State's going to be Ohio State. Michigan's going to get better, but we'll see. We still have a ways to go. We're gonna see some good teams, but, like, I just don't know. I think UCLA secondary is a big question mark. We're going to have to hope that the players that were brought in – because they're all new. I mean, it feels like everybody's new. Yep. So we're going to have to find out. I think we have some good linebackers coming back, some good transfers. So, I don't know. Kaika Malloy, do your magic. Develop these guys like crazy because I don't know. This is one of the reasons why I can't wait for spring because I really want to see what we got. I want to go out there and I want to watch and see what these athletes look like. And, last year I was pleasantly surprised. We took the core that we had and then we added in Addison. We added in Henderson. We added in, some of these guys that ended up having really, really good years. We have to add more this year, which is why I'm not 100% sure.
Well, finding the magic, Wayne, and uncovering the mysteries is what we'll be doing over the next couple of weeks. And really excited about the first of many conversations here, Wayne, in the days and weeks to come as we uncover with spring ball. Always such a pleasure to see you. The gift that you are to the UCLA community. Always such a blast, Wayne. I mean, where does the time go? It's been an hour. I mean, it feels like we've been here 6 minutes. I mean, time flies when you're having a great time. And as always, Bruin Nation, thank you so much for your support, your viewership, your ambassadorship, your partnership. And as always, 4's up forever until we see you next time.